Good morning again or good afternoon, should I say, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Quinn and I'm the Marketing Manager here at BrightPay. Looking first at the agenda for today's webinar, shortly I'll be passing you over to our guest speaker from the Revenue Commissioners, Colette Hayden. And today Colette is going to outline the recent changes to the EWSS, which took effect from the 1st of February. After Colette's presentation, we have a questions and answers section where we will try to get through as many questions as possible. If you have any questions, you can type them into the questions box on your control panel at the side of the screen. And bear in mind that we do have a lot of people joining us for today's webinar, so we might not have a chance to answer every single question. This webinar is being recorded, and all attendees will receive an email later today with a link to the recording of the webinar, so it's no problem if you do need to leave at any stage. Also in the email later today, there will be a copy of the presentation slides that we are using today, or you can also download the slides right now if you wish on the Handouts tab on your control panel. We will also include some useful documents and additional resources that you may find helpful in the email later today. So just looking at the number of people logged in at the moment, we're still waiting on quite a few people to join us. I suppose we've never really done a 2 p.m. webinar before, and there's probably a few people who are just logging in after their lunch break. So I'm going to explain a bit about who we are just for a couple of minutes before I pass over to Colette. So BrightPay is an award-winning payroll software that makes managing payroll quick and easy. It's created by Thesaurus Software, the #1 payroll software provider in Ireland. And at the moment, our products, including both BrightPay and Thesaurus Payroll Manager, are used to process the payroll for over 330,000 businesses across Ireland and the UK. BrightPay is a desktop-based payroll software, and it's available on both Windows and on Windows PCs. All BrightPay licenses include 10 activations, so you can have up to 10 different users processing payroll at no extra cost. We do also have an optional cloud add-on called BrightPay Connect, which backs up the payroll data to the cloud and gives you access to online employer and employee portals. And finally, I want to briefly mention some of our more recent features that have been added. So first up is our new API integration with accounting software, and this allows you to create wage journals in BrightPay and send them directly to your accounting software. The most recent accounting software addition to the list is Surf Accounts. We have recently merged with Relate Software, the creators of Surf Accounts, so it's great to have this integration to support our customers. Another feature that we have added recently is the ability to pay employees through BrightPay using our new integration with Modular, who are a payments provider. As I mentioned, with BrightPay Connect, there's an online employer dashboard, and employees have a self-service app where they can access payslips, request annual leave, view HR documents, and much more. For accountants, you can use BrightPay Connect to securely get payroll data from your clients and get their approval or sign off on the payroll run. And I suppose each of these are also relevant to our other payroll software, Thesaurus Payroll Manager. Connect works alongside the payroll, although it is a little bit more restricted with Thesaurus. We have the integration with Modular to make it easier and faster to pay employees. And also the integration with Surf Accounts is due to be released in Thesaurus very soon. The final part I want to mention is the Employment Wage Subsidy Scheme. And almost 2 years on, the rules regarding the EWSS are still changing month on month. BrightPay have been at the forefront for our customers, both with fast turnarounds on product upgrades and expert guidance through these webinars that we have been running regularly. So much so that we won a COVID-19 Hero Award for suppliers. So speaking of COVID and the EWSS, and seeing I think a lot more people have logged on now, So I'm going to pass you over to Colette from Revenue, who's going to take us through the recent changes to the scheme.
Thank you, Rachel. My name is Colette Hayden, and I'm going to talk to you today about the main features of the Employment Wage Subsidy Scheme, EWSS, as of today, which includes changes to the scheme announced on the 21st of December by the government in light of the restrictions announced on the 17th of December, along with further changes announced on the 21st of January 2022. As things do change, I would recommend anyone consulting this presentation in the future to check our website to ensure nothing has changed since today. In the next slide, I'm just going to do a quick recap of some of the key features of the Employment Wage Subsidy Scheme. EWSS could be claimed by eligible employers in respect of eligible employees from the 1st of September 2020. The subsidy is a flat rate subsidy which is paid on an employee's gross weekly pay. This will be covered in more detail in later slides. EWSS is operated through normal payroll and taxation systems, so employers will be required to continue to operate payroll taxes in a real time on all gross payments being made to their employees. Employer and employee eligibility and tax clearance will be covered in the next few slides. But a key point, the employer must have had a tax clearance to register for EWSS and must retain tax clearance to continue receiving subsidies. In line with international practice, a list of employers availing of EWSS was first published in January 2021 and will continue to be published quarterly on revenue.ie. This list will not distinguish between those who claimed or utilising the Employment Wage Subsidy Scheme or EWSS PHR flag, which I will speak about later. In relation to employers' PRSI, while employers are required to report and pay the full rate of employer and employee PRSI on receipt of payroll submissions, Revenue will continue to apply a reduced rate of employer PRSI of 0.5% in respect of employees for whom our subsidy is payable for pay dates to the 28th of February 2022. Employer monthly liabilities will be revised accordingly. There are safeguards to minimise abuse of the system, and I will talk further about them later. In the next slide, I'm just going to give a quick overview of the subsidy, and it's based on the employee's gross weekly wage. The gross wage includes notional pay before the deductions of pension or salary sacrifice, but excludes any Department of Social Protection benefits which employees may have mandated to be paid to the employer, such as illness, maternity or adoptive benefits. Where a pay frequency is other than weekly, the employer will calculate the gross weekly wage and divide by the number of insurable weeks to a maximum set by the system, and there is very good information on this in the main EWSS guidance document. If employers are found to manipulate the system by changing pay frequency, pay dates, or altering amounts to maximise the subsidy, they will be liable to recoupment of the subsidy received together with interest penalties and possible complete exclusion from the scheme. EWSS is part of the normal payroll process for PRSI, PAYE deductions, with the payroll being taxed in the live environment. The EWSS indicator involves populating the other payments field on the payroll submission with a value between 0 and 1 to indicate the subsidy request. This should not appear on the employee payslip. Subsidies will generally be paid within 2 working days with some minor delays at the start of each month or where an eligibility review forms are outstanding, which I will cover later. Where there are multiple employments, each eligible employer makes a claim for the subsidy in their own right for the eligible employee. There is no legislative requirement for employees to be actively working. However, payments of rates above their contracted rate to maximise the subsidy claims would be seen as an abuse of the scheme. In the next slide, as you are aware, to be eligible, an employer must experience a 30% reduction in turnover or customer order values as a result of COVID-19. For pay dates on or between the 1st of July 2021 and the 30th of April 2022, this 30% test is assessed by comparing the turnover or customer order values for the calendar year 2021 to the calendar year 2019. To qualify for subsidies to the 30th of April 2022, or the 31st of May 2022 if they qualify for the PHR rates, which I will cover later. Employers must have met the qualifying criteria for the reduction in turnover or customer order values at the end of 2021 and been validly registered at the 31st of December 2021 and have received a valid EWSS payment prior to that date. In the next slide, if the business was not in operation on the 1st of January 2019, the comparative period is the period from the date of commencement to the 31st of December 2019, where the business commenced trading between the 1st of January and the 31st of October 2019. If the business commenced to trade on or after the 1st of November 2019, the review is based on projected turnover or customer order values from the 1st of January 2021 or date of commencement if later, to the 31st of December 2021, prepared as if COVID-19 had not occurred. In the next slide, you will see the Eligibility Review Form, ERF. You will all be familiar with the Eligibility Review Form introduced on the 20th of July 2021, where by the 15th of every month from August 2021 to January 2022, employers were required to provide details of their actual turnover for the previous month and ensure their projected future monthly values were reviewed to ensure they remained valid. The final ERF was due to be filed on the 15th of January 2022, and employers need to ensure all ERFs are filed to avoid an interruption in processing of their claims. Where errors were made, employers could contact Revenue requesting that amendments be made to their submissions. Turning now to the next slide, the ERF was designed to be an aid to employers to ensure they remain eligible and avoid potential for subsidies being claimed in error and potential repayment issues arising. Employers need to ensure figures are to be completed net of VAT. We undertake real-time reviews of ERFs and make contact with employers where discrepancies arise, including when employers complete nil for some periods or where they dampen down projections as the year progresses, as actuals for earlier months are higher than originally expected. Moving on to the next slide, we are aware that certain employers became ineligible for EWSS from the 1st of December 2021 on foot of the eligibility review undertaken on the 30th of November 2021, which was included in the ERF, which was due to be filed on the 15th of November. However, as a result of public health restrictions introduced from the 20th of December 2021, the December projections prepared on the 30th of November may now be overstated. Because of this, Revenue facilitated the amendment of the December projections prepared on the 30th of November for these employers if they are eligible based on revised December projections prepared taking the 20th of December 2021 restrictions into account. Moving on to the next slide, employers who require now an amendment of their December projections included in their November ERF, which was due on the 15th of December last, should have contacted us through my inquiries, selecting the employer's PAYE and then the employer's PAYE general inquiry, requesting that the ERF is amended to include the revised December projections, which they should provide to us. Where the November ERF, which was due on the 15th of December, has not yet been filed, please now submit same, including the revised projections for December 2021, not those prepared at the 30th of November. Any ERFs outstanding for earlier months should be filed utilising the original December projections. In the next slide, if such employers correctly deregistered after the 30th of November following the eligibility review on that date, and re-registration is now being sought based on the revised December projections, please contact us through my inquiries, selecting employers PAYE and then employers PAYE general inquiry seeking re-registration. When employers again find themselves eligible but have not claimed EWSS in respective pay dates after the 1st of December 2021, please ensure you are re-registered for EWSS and have an updated November ERF on file, and then amend the December payroll submissions to include the EWSS claim. Any December payroll submissions already filed which included an EWSS claim will be processed once the November ERF is amended or filed. Notwithstanding the above, existing eligible employers are further reminded that they're required to file the December ERF record, which was due on the 15th of January 2022. Moving on now to those looking to re-enter based on eligibility criteria in the next slide. EWSS was reopened for certain businesses who would otherwise not be eligible for the existing scheme. Businesses that were previously registered for the EWSS and received a payment in compliance with the scheme could re-qualify for the scheme where they meet certain conditions, those being the trade existed at the 31st of December 2021. They previously correctly availed of EWSS at any stage between the 1st of September 2020 and the 31st of December 2021. They do not qualify under this current scheme as they do not expect a 30% reduction in turnover or customer order values between the calendar years 2019 and 2021. Their business is expected to experience a 30% reduction in turnover or customer order values in the period from the 1st of December 2021 to the 31st of January 2022, and this disruption to normal operations is caused by COVID-19. Moving on to review the re-entry criteria. This reduction in turnover or customer orders is relative to the period the 1st of December 2019 to the 31st of January 2020, compared with the period the 1st of December 2021 to the 31st of January 2022, where the business was in existence prior to the 1st of May 2019, or where the business commenced trading in the period from the 1st of May 2019 and the 31st of December 2021, the average monthly actual turnover or customer order values from August 2021 or commencement date if later to November 2021, compared with the actual monthly turnover or customer order values for December 2021, plus the projected turnover or customer order values to January 2022. Let's take a few examples in the next slide to explain this in more detail. The first example, the trade commenced on the 1st of January 1995. As this was before the 1st of May 2019, the comparison is actual for December 2021 plus projections for January 2022 against actuals for December 2019 and January 2020. The next example started to trade on the 15th of July 2019. As this was after the 1st of May 2019, the comparison is the average monthly value comparing actual for December 2021 plus projections for January 2022 with actuals for August to November 2021. In the third example, they commenced to trade on the 1st of September 2021. Again, this is after the 1st of May 2019. However, it's after the 1st of August 2021, the first month to be included in the average monthly turnover comparison. Thus, the average monthly comparison is undertaken by comparing the average of the December 2021 actual plus January 2022 projections with the average of the 3 months of September to November 2021. And in the final example, this business commenced to trade in the middle of the month, the 15th of October 2021. Again, this is after the 1st of May, but after the 1st of August 2021. So similar to the previous example, the average monthly comparison is undertaken by comparing the average of the December 2021 actual plus January 2022 projections with the average of the 1.5 months of the 15th of October to the 30th of November 2021. Moving on to the next slide, what steps do you need to take to re-enter the scheme? Once an employer is determined they were eligible to re-enter the scheme, they completed the relevant application template, both of which is available in January 2022 EWSS guidelines on our website. These were completed and submitted to Revenue by the 15th of January 2022 through my inquiry selecting Employers PAYE and then Employers PAYE General Inquiry. Revenue then undertook a review of the submission and ensured the business, if eligible, is registered. Not all applications have been approved as of yet, and queries have been raised with some employers prior to registration to ensure eligibility. A notification issued through my inquiries to the employer advising of the outcome of the re-registration request. If re-registered, this will be effective from the 1st of January 2022. Employers should ensure a claim is submitted in respect of all eligible employees for pay dates between the 1st of January and the 30th of April 2022 or the 31st of May 2022 if they qualify for the PHR. If a payroll has been submitted prior to re-registration without including an EWSS claim, this should be amended to include the EWSS claim after the receipt of the successful re-registration confirmation. There is no requirement for these employers to complete the eligibility review forms. However, employers are required to undertake a review at the end of January 2022 to ensure their projections were accurate, and if actuals were used, they would not have been eligible. In such instances where actuals far exceeded projections such that the employer is not eligible, they should contact us through my inquiries to request deregistration and cease submitting EWSS claims. So moving on now, I just want to review the examples of directly impacted sectors that can avail of the EWSS PHR. On the 21st of January 2022, it was announced that employers already eligible and registered for EWSS, employing eligible employees to work in businesses which are wholly or partly directly impacted by the public health restrictions PHR in place between the 20th of December 2021 and 6 a.m. on the 22nd of January 2022. Would be paid the enhanced rates for an additional month to the 28th of February 2022, and the phased exit of the scheme would be extended by 1 month to the 31st of May 2022 for them. This phase of the scheme is called EWSS PHR. Businesses that may benefit from the changes announced are likely to include, for example, restaurants, bars and cafes, excluding takeaway or delivery services, which were required to close at 8 p.m, where this is before their normal closing time. Operators of indoor events, including entertainment, cultural, community and sporting events, which could not take place after 8 p.m, with attendance limited to 50% of venue capacity or 1,000 attendees, whichever was the lower for events held before 8 p.m. Operator of outdoor events, including entertainment, cultural, community and sporting events, where attendance was limited to 50% of venue capacity or 5,000 attendees, whichever was the lower, and wedding reception venues where capacity was limited to a maximum of 100 guests and had to close by midnight. Employers need to self-declare that they are eligible. Submission of a claim for EWSS PHR subsidies is a declaration by the employer that they are eligible. Employers in sectors indirectly impacted, for example, suppliers to directly impacted, do not qualify from the changes announced. In the next slide, eligible employers claiming in respect of eligible employees in the sectors directly impacted by the public health restrictions introduced on the 20th of December 2021 to 6 a.m. on the 22nd of January 2022 should indicate that a subsidy is being requested for an eligible employee by including EWSS PHR rather than Employment Wage Subsidy Scheme as the payment type in the other payments section on the payroll submission and input 0 or 1, depending on the capability of the payroll package being utilised. Payroll software providers will advise their users which is to be input, as the quantum of the corresponding other payment made, and you can see the example there on screen. Directly impacted employers who have submitted pay slips for relevant employees for pay dates after the 1st of February 2022 and selected Employment Wage Subsidy Scheme need to correct these pay slips and select EWSS PHR to ensure they receive the correct subsidy. Employers who utilise payroll software should do this through their payroll package rather than through ROS. Employers who include both Employment Wage Subsidy Scheme and EWSS PHR on a single payslip will not receive a subsidy. Moving on to the next slide for the rates payable under EWS PHR. Those eligible for EWSS-PHR will be paid the enhanced rates for an additional month to the 28th of February 2022, and the phased exit of the scheme will be extended by 1 month to the 31st of December or 31st of May, 2022. This slide outlines the enhanced rates of the subsidy payable for each PHR employee in respect of pay dates due the 28th of February 2022, which range from €203 to €350 per week. No subsidy is payable if an employee is paid less than €151.50 or more than €1,462 per week. Please also note the reduced rate of employer PRSI of 0.5% on wages paid ceases for all employers on the 28th of February 2022. In the next slide, for your information, it outlines the rates of subsidy payable for each PHR employee for pay dates in March 2022, which range from €151.50 to €203 per week. No subsidy is payable if an employee is paid less than €151.50 or more than €1,462 per week. In the following slide, this slide outlines the rates of subsidy payable for each employee in the directly impacted sectors in respect of pay dates from the 1st of April 2022 to the 31st of May 2022. It's a flat rate of €100 per week. As you can see, no subsidy is payable if an employee is paid less than €151.50 per week or more than €1,462 per week. EWSS ceases for employers directly impacted by the public health restrictions and regulations on the 31st of May 2022. Turning now to the next slide, for all other businesses still claiming EWSS, for your information, this slide outlines the rates of subsidy payable for each employee for pay dates in February 2022, which range from €151.50 to €203 per week. No subsidy is payable if an employee is paid less than €151.50 or more than €1,462 per week. Please also note the reduced rate of employer PRSI of 0.5% on wages also ceases to be paid on the 28th of February 2022. In the next slide, it outlines the rates of subsidy payable for each employee in respect of pay dates from the 1st of March 2022 to the 30th of April 2022, which is a flat rate of €100 per week. As you can see, no subsidy is payable if an employee is paid less than €151.50 per week or more than €1,462 per week. EWSS ceases on the 30th of April 2022 for those businesses not directly impacted by the recent public health restrictions (PHR) in place between the 20th of December 2021 and 6 a.m. on the 22nd of January 2022. Turning now to the next slide. In certain circumstances, employers may decide to repay subsidies and PRSI credit for some or all periods. Employers need to remove the EWSS marker from the other payments field of the payslips they wish to return the subsidy on. This should be done utilising payroll software for employers who utilise payroll software. For employers utilising ROS for payroll submissions, removal of the marker involves changing the other payments field from the Employee Wage Subsidy Scheme or EWSS-PHR to select marker. Once this is done, ROS will display the quantum of the EWSS and PRSI credit to be repaid. Payment of the liabilities should be made utilising RevPay. Employers will remain on the publication list even if all subsidies claims have been repaid. Turning now to debt warehousing, just giving you an update in the next slide. In December, the government also confirmed that period 1, the COVID restricted trading phase of the debt warehousing scheme, would be extended to the 30th of April 2022 for taxpayers eligible for COVID-19 support schemes who are already eligible for and availing of debt warehousing. Therefore, VAT and PAYE employer liabilities arising for such businesses in the first 4 months of 2022 can be warehoused. Period 2, the zero interest phase of the debt warehousing scheme, will now be closed businesses on the 1st of May 2022 and run until the 30th of April 2023. A reduced interest rate of 3% per annum will apply for period 3, which commences on the 1st of May 2023, on warehoused balances outstanding until the debt is discharged. For employers eligible for EWSS, to qualify for this extension, they must receive a valid EWSS payment between the 1st of January and the 30th of April 2022 in respect of a pay date in that period, and be in the debt warehousing scheme at the 31st of December 2022. Employers whose tax affairs are dealt with in Revenue's Personal Division or Business Division have their EWSS overpayments warehoused automatically. Large Cases Division and Medium Enterprises Division employers have to make an application to have their EWSS overpayments warehoused. Other tax payment and filing obligations must be kept up to date for the duration of the debt warehousing period and for any subsequent arrangements periods to guarantee the reduced interest rates of 0% in periods 1 and 2 and 3% in period 3. Failure to meet current tax obligations will result in the warehoused facility being withdrawn. Full statutory interest will be applied to the outstanding balance from the date of removal from the debt warehouse. Moving on now to the next slide. Since its introduction, Revenue has been undertaking a multifaceted approach to compliance checks to safeguard the integrity of EWSS. This includes systematic checking of submissions, undertaking real-time checking of payroll submissions from employers availing of the scheme, and cross-referencing claim data against other revenue data sources to identify anomalies or trends requiring attention. The real-time checking procedures are supported by a real-time engagement with employers to facilitate timely resolution of issues and to ensure employers claim the correct EWSS entitlement or cease claiming where they no longer have an entitlement. Revenue is also carrying out a risk-focused follow-up programme of compliance interventions. Underpinning this is the use of data analytics to interrogate data on revenue systems, identifying employers who may not meet the eligibility criteria, and undertaking an intervention in accordance with Code of Practice for Revenue Audit and other compliance interventions. Preemptive data analysis using ERF data and other sources of return data is actively being used. We have also been undertaking auto deregistration of passive employers who remain registered but do not submit EWSS claims on the assumption that such employers are no longer eligible. Employers and their agents are advised of the deregistration and can contact us to request re-registration when appropriate. It's expected this process will be run within the next 2 weeks, whereby employers who have not submitted an EWSS claim since December 2021 will be auto deregistered. Turning now to the next slide, the legislation includes some specific anti-avoidance provisions which seek to counteract abuse of the scheme. To assist employers to deal with any revenue intervention, it's imperative they retain records to support their registration and continued eligibility for the scheme for potential for review in the future. And finally, consequences of a determination by Revenue of abuse of the scheme can result in the complete exclusion from the scheme at an employer level, possible repayment of subsidies received with interest and penalties, and possible criminal prosecution. The last slide there outlines a lot of additional information on our website on the EWSS, including guidelines which are updated as the scheme progresses. I would recommend that employers regularly access these resources to ensure you remain up to date. Thanks for your attention. We will now be taking questions.
Wonderful. Thanks a million, Colette. So as Colette just said there, it's now time for the questions and answers. And we're delighted to be joined by Anne DeLay, who is the Principal Officer in the Medium Enterprises Division and business owner of the EWSS at Revenue, to answer any questions that you may have. And joining Anne today is Audrey Mooney, who is the Customer Support Manager here at the Zora Software. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the questions box on your screen, and we will try to get through as many questions as possible. And I see a lot of questions have come in already today. And Audrey, you've been tracking them as they've been coming in. So I might pass it over to you for the questions.
Thanks, Rachel, and good afternoon, everyone. So there are quite a lot of repeat questions, so I will try and avoid those as much as possible. And I'm afraid most of the questions are for you, so apologies in advance. So the first question there is, I'm currently looking at an EWSS compliance check for a client. Am I correct in thinking that the 30% reduction test was for each month individually, for September to December 2020, and then for the full year in 2021 in total?
Hi Audrey and everybody. The compliance checks are looking at eligibility, and the rules for eligibility are set out in the main guidelines, and it has never been a month-on-month check. It was always a combined month. So like you say, for July 2021 to August, or apologies, April 2022, it was a 30% reduction in the calendar year 2021 versus 2019. For January to June 2021, it was a 30% reduction in those 6 months versus January to June 2019. And for the 2020, I'm sorry, it changed so much I actually forget off the top of my head what it actually was, but I suppose the conclusion is that it was never month on month. You needed to look at it in totality over the period of the eligibility review. So I'm just putting out the guidelines now to confirm what it was for 2020. It was 1st of January to 30th of June 2021 versus 1st of January to 30th of June 2019 for this. Yeah, sorry, I hope that's clear, Audrey. Apologies, it has changed so much I actually forgot off the top of my head. Yeah,
I know it's really hard to keep up to date. Yeah, perfect. Quite a lot of questions, Anne, in relation to, I suppose, the ERF in 2022, or I suppose what they should be doing. So I think it was covered in the presentation, but maybe just, I suppose, to reconfirm.
Yeah, so the last ERF that needs to be submitted is on the 15th of January, and it's to cover the December actuals, and there's no ERF then to be done for the remainder of the year. If you were eligible at the end of December, then you're eligible for January to April.
Perfect, thank you, Anne. The next question there is, my normal payroll processing date is a Wednesday. For the payroll week ending on Sunday, February 27th, can I move the processing date to Monday, February 28th, so that we can avail of the higher EWSS rates for week ending February 27th? As if we process on the Wednesday, March 2nd, we will only get the lower rates. So again, I think that was covered, but maybe just no harm to reiterate.
Yeah, because this is going to be coming up again and again as we come to the end of the scheme, with some people exiting at the end of April and more people exiting at the end of May. The subsidy is dependent on the pay date. It's the date that you pay your wages to your staff. So it's not the processing date, it's the actual pay date. So in that instance, I think you said the pay date, or you said the processing date was Wednesday. So I'm assuming maybe the pay date is the Friday. So you get the subsidy on the 25th of February based on the February rates, and then on the 4th of March based on the March rates. I know some people, people might be saying that, when it comes to the end of the scheme, or instances like this where the subsidy is falling, that if, let's say, they're on fortnightly, that they should split the pay, but they would have benefited when you came into the scheme, that you would have got the full 2-week subsidy at the start of the scheme, even though maybe only one of those weeks fell into the scheme. So it's, it does balance itself out over the whole time of the scheme. Now, at the end of TWIS, we did see employers bringing forward their pay date to ensure that they got the last week of TWIS, and that's actually an abuse of the scheme. And we have been making contact with employers who brought their pay date forward a couple of days to avail of that last TWIS payment, and we're recouping it. So we'll be doing the same when it comes to the end of EWSS, just to make sure that there isn't an abuse of the scheme by amending pay dates or pay frequencies to maximise the subsidies that are due.
Great, thanks very much, Anne. Somebody's asking, why would Revenue have debited them for EWSS payments that they received in January and February?
I presume when they're saying debiting, they mean that we took it back from them, but we wouldn't actually be able to go in. Yeah, we can't go into a bank account and take money unless we have an instruction to do it under the ROS, debit instruction. So someone would have had to go in and actually instruct us to take that money back out again. But if there is a particular issue on that, just contact us and we look into it. Apologies, Audrey.
I was going to say maybe they mean on the statement of account or something, you know, that it's increased by that amount or something.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any reason why that would have happened. But again, I'll just say, make contact with us and we'll look into that particular case. I haven't heard of any instance like that.
Perfect, thanks, Anne. A question here, will taxis and taxi companies get enhanced EWSS in February with the EWSS extended to May?
They would not be seen as having been directly impacted because they were still able to take passengers at the same time that they would have before. They would be seen as maybe indirectly impacted, so they wouldn't be eligible for the increased rates.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people indirectly affected, that don't qualify. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Okay. So the next question there is, we are a restaurant who got EWSS because of the restrictions on our opening times over the Christmas period. I believe we are entitled to the enhanced EWSS now on offer. I can see where I can make the change on Thesaurus for this payment, but is there anything I need to do on Ross?
If you are a restaurant who would generally be open beyond 8 o'clock, then you would be eligible for the enhanced rates because you're directly impacted. If the payroll submission or your payroll package has the ability to allow you to select the ERF, then that payroll will talk to revenue system through ROS. There's nothing you need to do on ROS, just the payroll will do that. That's correct, Audrey, isn't it? They don't need to do anything. If it's your payroll, it'll automatically speak to ROS.
Exactly, yeah. So it's just the indicator, there's nothing else required. Yeah. Perfect. A few of these questions, Anne, and it's just, can an employer that qualifies for EWSS hire new staff in 2022 and claim EWSS for those new hires?
Yeah, there's no restriction on an employer having to be employed at a particular date and time. It's that they are employed by you at the date, that you're paying them for working for you, that there is an employer-employee relationship at the time that they're being paid rather than having to be there at a point in time.
Perfect. Somebody's just asking then, for wages processed between the 1st and 3rd of February where the employer was affected by PHR, but there was no PHR flag on payroll at the time of processing, will they have been paid the normal subsidy by now and the difference be paid when they tick the PHR flag and send a forced PSR?
The original subsidy should be paid at this stage. I'll let you, Audrey, maybe deal with how they correct it to get the PHR, because I assume it's Thesaurus that they're utilising, or BrightPay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's either, but I suppose, different payroll softwares are handling this slightly differently. So even Thesaurus and BrightPay, there is a slight difference. I think it would be best to contact, either our support team or the support team of the payroll software, just to make sure that, the correction submission is done properly and that the additional money then is paid.
Yeah, and I would also just emphasise that if you are using a payroll package, make the correction through the payroll package. Don't go into ROS and make it through ROS. If you're using a payroll package, then that's where the correction needs to be made rather than through ROS.
Absolutely, yeah. Or it'll be a nightmare for everyone.
Absolutely.
Somebody's just asking, do you expect any delays processing the EWSS payments with a PHR flag ticked? Or would it be in line with normal kind of pay date?
It'll be in line with normal. The system went live on Wednesday afternoon and we've already processed payments to 370 employers. So it is live and it is working as it should. So it'll be paid the same way as the normal EWSS.
Thanks, Anne. Next question then is, when and how are overpaid employers to refund amounts of EWSS overpaid to them in 2020 and 2021 where they did not qualify?
That's dealt with in the updated guidelines. We had never actually put out, in any of the guidelines what employers need to do. So if you consult the main EWSS guidelines, it's set out there. But basically what you need to do is actually go in and amend your payroll submissions by removing the EWSS flag from whatever payroll submission you weren't eligible for, and then this ROS will update to show the amount of EWSS and PRSI credit that needs to be repaid, and that then can be paid through ResPay.
Perfect, thanks, Anne. That a business that started in July 2021 but was not claiming EWSS in 2021, can they now claim in 2022?
To re-enter the scheme in 2022, you had to have been eligible for and have received EWSS before 2022. So in this case, they didn't receive it, so they're not eligible for EWSS for 2022.
Thank you. Somebody's asking, are hotels an example of a business that were directly impacted as they closed to the public after 8 p.m?
Yes, they are. And again, if you consult our main guidelines, they set out different examples. They're the same examples that were set out by the government in their statutory instrument when they announced the restrictions that were implemented from the 20th of December. So hotels, restaurants are specifically mentioned as qualifying.
Perfect. If you were eligible up to 31st of December 2021, do you have to re-register?
No, your registration continues onwards. There's nothing extra you need to do.
For a company who's qualified for EWSS from January 2021 to December 2021, do we need to do any returns for January to April? So I know we've covered that. So they're saying if their turnover increases, do they need to sign off? And if so, how do they do that?
Again, the ability or the eligibility for January to April or May is based on the 2021 versus 2019. So if you are eligible for 2021 versus 2019, what your turnover is in 2022 won't result in you being ineligible. The only exception to that are the people who re-entered from January if they projected that their January turnover was an awful lot lower than what it ended up being, then they should deregister from the 1st of February. But again, that's covered in the January EWSS guidelines, which is a short document if people want to refer to that if they feel their January 2022 turnover was more significant than what they originally expected when they sought to re-enter the scheme.
Okay, thank you. Our client was deregistered for EWSS in November 2021. When December eligibility checks were ran, they met the criteria of 30% reduction, but January 2022 they did not. We have applied to Revenue for approval to re-enter the scheme, and this has been approved. My question is, although we can't claim EWSS for January 2022, are we able to claim for December 21? If that's too specific, is it too specific a case, Anne, maybe to be?
Generally, it's not backdated. EWSS is not backdated, and if you were eligible to claim it for December 2021, you should have been registered in December 2021. So I don't understand why you re-entered rather than registered. So again, it's quite a specific query, Audrey. If they want to contact me, I can look at it separately offline.
Perfect, thank you. Somebody's just asking then, is the eligibility criteria for employees the same for EWSS PHR as it is for the current EWSS scheme?
Yes, it's basically that you're not paid less than 150 or more than 1,462. That's the main criteria.
Thank you. Somebody's saying their accountant told them that Revenue automatically deregistered the business for EWSS at the end of December and that they now have to re-register. Our business opened in September 2021. Why is this? And I think Colette may have touched on this in her presentation.
Okay, we haven't deregistered anybody from the end of December. The last auto deregistration we did was the end of October. So the reason we would have deregistered people from the end of October would have been because they hadn't submitted an EWSS claim. I think it was after August. So that's, again, a bit odd. If they want to contact me, I'll take a look into those particular circumstances and see what happened.
Okay, so you have none of those in December. Okay. Can businesses which are not impacted, which are not in the impacted sectors, be allowed to claim EWSS again if their turnover is down by 30%?
if you're not registered, eligible and registered at the end of December, then you can't re-enter the scheme at this stage. That was the government policy, that there was no new employers allowed in after the 31st of December 2021, and then there was that small cohort who could re-enter from January.
Perfect. Somebody's just saying then they had to refund part of EWSS to revenue in 2021 as they became ineligible towards the end of 2021, but had still received the payments. We had an issue with the PRSI credit where the amount the payroll software had versus the amount of ROS are different. Revenue are adamant the figure on ROS is correct, which is considerably less, but not according to the software. Have you come across this? So I kind of feel this is some sort of a misunderstanding or something, Anne, but your figure should definitely be right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what that is, why that would be, Audrey. I haven't come across that.
Yeah, me neither. And I mean, I don't know if it's our payroll software, but certainly if that person wants to get in contact, if it is our software and you want to get in contact, we can certainly have a look at that.
And then you can contact us, Audrey, and we'd work through it together just to see whether it's ROS or the software, or if there's a miscommunication somewhere.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Somebody's just asking if an employer submits one PSR with no subsidy being claimed for some employees and EWSS PHR for some employees, will they still be paid EWSS PHR rates for the eligible employees? So it's absolutely fine to have that mix, Anne, I think. Yeah.
Say that to me again. If they have both EWSS and EWSS PHR, is it?
No, basically there's some employees with no EWSS whatsoever, and then some with EWSS PHR.
Yeah, that's okay. But again, you'd only see situations like that if you have two separate business divisions, because like the first test to claim EWSS PHR is that you're eligible for EWSS, so that your turnover dropped 30% between the calendar year 2021 versus the calendar year 2019. That's the first test. And the second test then is whether you're directly impacted by the restrictions that came in on the 28th of December. So I don't know why you'd have some employees that are eligible for EWSS PHR and some employees that are eligible for nothing, unless you had separate business divisions.
Yeah, that makes sense. So somebody's just saying they've submitted their payroll for weekend of January 30th. I suppose we need to get away from weekend because it's pay dates that I suppose concern the schemes, but they didn't select EWSS PHR as it wasn't available when making the submission on ROS. So can we just advise how to get the higher rates as they got the lower rates paid today? So again, I think it depends on the payroll software, and it's best to contact whoever that may be just to see how best to correct that submission.
Yes, absolutely.
Again, this is another payroll one. If your payroll provider won't have the software update ready until next week, is there a deadline to amend the submission to claim EWSS PHR for payroll submission dated the 3rd of February?
No, there's no deadline. Now, having said that, we don't want to see it coming in December, but if the software isn't available until next week, that's not a problem.
Perfect. I suppose there was a lot of pressure to get these changes out on all sides. I'm sorry, I think we'd agree. Yeah. A few more just about needing to do corrections. Somebody's just saying, so am I right in saying that anyone that was entitled to EWSS at the end of December can go on to claim until April at least?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Provided you were validly registered, obviously, that's the assumption that you were eligible. Yeah.
Sorry, these are just kind of questions that have come in since we started asking them. I'm just trying to.
No, that's fine. I'll go back to the 2020 one I've looked up. It's July to December 2020 versus July to December 2019. That's for your 2020 eligibility period, that first question.
Perfect, thanks, Anne. Somebody's just asking, can you explain about EWSS PHR again? I don't know,
it's a very broad one.
Yeah, it is, sorry.
EWSS PHR is basically, it's an additional month of the higher rates and an additional month then at the end and it's available to employers who were impacted by the public health restrictions that came in on the 20th of December. Those are the ones that required people to close at 8 o'clock, and restrictions on the numbers at events that were held before 8 o'clock as well. So again, I would just, if you want to just look at the guidelines, because they highlight what has changed, and that will take you to, if you just flick through the guidelines and look for the yellow bits, that will highlight the PHR stuff for you easily if you want to read up on them.
And I don't know if you know this, but somebody's just asking, do Revenue plan to open their phone lines past 1:30 again, or is that a permanent arrangement? Do you know?
I don't know that, Audrey.
Yeah, I suppose I didn't hear that it was permanent. I think really the emphasis is on using my inquiries, isn't it? And it's to allow,
yeah,
I suppose, the staff more time to deal with those, with the volumes coming through. But yeah, again, I'm not sure if it's permanent either. Somebody's asking, are childcare facilities eligible for EWSS PHR?
Childcare facilities were not directly impacted by the restrictions that came in, so they're not eligible for PHR.
Yeah, I suppose they were always different throughout, but this is one thing that, yeah, I suppose, yeah, they're not entitled to.
Yeah.
A lot of repeat questions here. Somebody's asking, would wedding singers be eligible for EWSS PHR?
The venues are eligible. I'm not sure that the singers are. They would appear to be secondary, like indirectly impacted rather than directly impacted.
It's amazing the things we don't think of, you know, that the questions. Yeah, it's I suppose there's so many people impacted, but again, I think this is a specific case where they probably have to contact Revenue Anne, but somebody's just saying, would there be any reason why a client wouldn't have received EWSS for January 2022? So they got it for December 2021 and February 2022, but they didn't get anything for January.
That may be because they didn't file the November ERF. We have seen some people who didn't file the November ERF, but they filed their December ERF, so that's possibly the reason why they didn't get it. I would just recommend that they make contact with Revenue.
Submission. Yeah, but yeah, there has to be.
Well, the December was probably submitted. I'm just wondering, was the November submitted? But again, I think you just need to make contact with Revenue through my inquiries, and that will be looked into.
Somebody's just saying that they've joined late. How do they claim the extra subsidy for the hospitality sector? They have Bright Pay. So if it's on Bright Pay, provided you're on the upgrade that we released on Tuesday. Sorry, my days are all mixed up. If you go into the employee record, you'll see an additional tick option for EWSS PHR. I suppose whether or not you've submitted for a pay date, you know, on or after the 1st of February, so you may need to do a correction submission, but feel free to contact support. I think, to be honest with you, we have answered most questions there. As I said, there's a lot of repetitive questions. It can be hard to sift through them, but I think we've gotten to most of them.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, we can finish up there. So thanks, Audrey, for reading out the questions, and a massive thank you again to both Colette and Anne who joined us from Revenue. So that brings us to the end of today's webinar, and I know we have covered a lot on today's webinar, but we will send everyone an email later today, and this will include a copy of the slides and a link to the recording of today's webinar